This episode doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't rely on shock alone. Instead, it quietly proves something powerful when a story truly understands its characters. Everything else falls into place. That is why this episode feels perfect. Not because of what happens, but because of who it happens to and why it matters. This episode works because every character feels real, grounded, and emotionally present. No one feels pushed into the story just to fill time. Every person on screen has a clear purpose, and more importantly, a clear emotional state. The kids are not just brave for the sake of being brave. They are scared, confused, and unsure. But they move forward because they trust each other. Their fear feels honest, not dramatic. The teens are no longer just caught between childhood and adulthood. In this episode, they feel stuck in the middle, forced to make choices they are not ready for, yet unable to step away. Even the adults are not shown as all-knowing heroes. They doubt themselves. They make mistakes. They carry guilt from past failures. This honesty makes every decision feel earned. When a character speaks, it sounds like something they would actually say. When they hesitate, it feels human. Nothing feels rushed or faked. That is why viewers connect so deeply. The episode doesn't tell us who these people are. It shows us quietly and carefully, through their choices, what makes this episode even stronger is how it allows characters to grow without changing who they are at their core. Growth does not come from big speeches or dramatic turns. It comes from small moments. A look held for a second longer than usual, a pause before answering, a question, a choice that goes against fear instead of comfort. These moments add layers to each character without breaking their identity. The brave ones are still afraid. The quiet ones still struggle to speak up. The leaders still carry doubt. This balance keeps the story grounded. It reminds us that growth is not about becoming someone new, but about facing something difficult while staying true to yourself. That is why the emotional weight of this episode hits so hard. It feels like watching real people learn something about themselves in real time, not characters following a script. Another reason this episode stands out is how it respects the audience's intelligence. It doesn't explain every feeling out. Loud trusts viewers to understand what a character is going through just by watching their reactions. Silence is allowed to exist. Awkward moments are not cut short. Emotional beats are given space to breathe. This creates a deeper connection between the audience and the characters. We are not told how to feel. We discover it ourselves. When something scary happens, we don't just react to the danger. We react to how the characters react. Their fear becomes our fear. Their hope becomes our hope. This emotional alignment is rare, and it's one of the main reasons this episode stays with people long after it ends. By the time the episode moves forward, it feels like everyone has shifted, even if only slightly. Not in a loud or obvious way, but in a meaningful one. Relationships feel tested, trust feels earned, fear feels heavier, but so does determination. This episode understands that story is not just about events, but about impact. What matters is not only what happens next, but how what just happened will stay with these characters. That understanding is what makes this episode feel complete. It doesn't just move the plot forward, it deepens the soul of the story. And that is why, for many viewers, this episode feels like Stranger Things at its absolute best. This episode finds a rare balance that many shows try to achieve, but very few actually pull off. Fear is present in almost every moment, yet it never takes control of the story. Horror is not used just to scare the audience. It is used to reveal emotions. Every tense moment is followed by something human, something quiet, something that reminds us why the danger matters in the first place. That balance is what makes this episode feel so complete. The fear has meaning because it is tied directly to the characters and what they care about. What makes the horror work here is that it feels personal. The danger is not just a monster in the dark or a threat coming from nowhere. It is connected to memories, guilt, and unresolved pain. When something frightening happens, We are not only worried about what will happen next, but about how it will change the people involved. The episode understands that fear hits harder when it attacks something emotional. That is why even small scary moments feel intense. A sound in the distance, a shadow that lingers too long, a look of panic that spreads across someone's face. These moments don't rely on loud music or sudden movement. They rely on anticipation. The episode allows fear to grow slowly, making the audience lean in instead of pulling away. At the same time, the episode never forgets the heart of the story. Just when things feel overwhelming, it gives us moments of connection, friends checking on each other, a quiet promise spoken under pressure, a simple act of kindness in the middle of chaos. These scenes are not placed randomly. They are carefully positioned to remind us what is at stake. Without these emotional beats, the horror would feel empty. With them, every thread feels heavier. We are not scared because something bad might happen. We are scared because we know exactly who might be hurt and why it would matter. The emotional scenes do not slow the episode down. Instead, they make it stronger. They give meaning to the fear and weight to the action. When characters pause to talk, to argue, or to comfort each other, it doesn't feel like a break from the story. It feels like the story itself. These moments help us understand how close the characters are and how much they rely on each other. That connection makes every dangerous moment more intense. We feel tension not only in our minds, but in our hearts. The episode understands that true suspense comes from caring, not just watching. Another powerful choice this episode makes is how it uses restraint. It does not show everything. Some of the most frightening moments are left unseen. We hear them, we feel them, we imagine them. This approach allows the audience's mind to fill in the gaps, which often creates more fear than any visual could. At the same time, the episode avoids becoming too dark or heavy. It balances intense scenes with moments of hope, reminding us that even in the worst situations, these characters still fight to protect each other. That sense of hope keeps the episode from feeling hopeless or exhausting. By the end of this section of the story, the audience feels emotionally invested and emotionally drained in the best way possible. Fear and heart are working together, not against each other. Neither one is louder than it needs to be. The episode respects the audience enough to trust that we can feel both at the same time. That is why this balance stands out. It is not accidental. It is carefully built, scene by scene, moment by moment, and it is one of the strongest reasons why this episode feels unforgettable. Not just scary, but deeply human. This episode feels so strong because nothing inside it is wasted. Every scene has a reason to exist, and every moment pushes the story forward in a clear and meaningful way. There is no sense of padding or delay. The episode knows exactly what it wants to say and how long it needs to say it. That focus creates a smooth flow that keeps the viewer fully locked in. Even when the story shifts locations or characters, it never feels confusing or messy. Everything feels connected, like pieces of the same puzzle slowly coming together. One of the smartest choices this episode makes is how it handles pacing. It doesn't rush important moments, but it also never lingers too long. Conversations end at the right time, tension builds, releases, and then builds again without losing energy. When the story moves from one group of characters to another, it feels natural, not forced. Each transition is timed to keep curiosity alive. Just when one storyline reaches a pause, another one picks up with new information or rising danger. This rhythm keeps the episode engaging from start to finish without feeling overwhelming. The writing also understands the power of clarity. The goals are simple and easy to follow. Characters know what they need to do, even if they don't know how things will turn out. This clarity helps the audience stay focused on emotions instead of trying to figure out basic plot details. We are never distracted by confusion. Instead, we are pulled deeper into the tension of whether the characters will succeed or fail. The episode respects the viewer's attention by making sure every step of the story feels purposeful, and easy. To track that, another reason the storytelling feels so tight is because scenes are built around cause and effect. Something happens, and there is a reaction. That reaction leads to a decision. And that decision creates consequences. Nothing feels random. Even small actions matter later in the episode. A choice made early on changes how a character behaves in a later moment. A line of dialogue suddenly carries more weight when we remember what came before it. This layered approach makes the episode feel carefully crafted rather than loosely assembled. The episode also avoids over-explaining. It trusts the audience to remember details and connect dots on their own. Instead of repeating information, it lets visual cues, expressions, and small actions carry meaning. This keeps the story moving without slowing it down. When everything is explained too clearly, tension disappears. This episode understands that mystery and uncertainty are part of what makes the story exciting. It gives just enough information to keep us engaged while holding back enough to keep us curious. What truly sets this episode apart is how all its storylines feel equally important. No plot thread feels like filler or a distraction. Each one adds pressure, emotion, or information that strengthens the whole episode. Even quieter moments are doing work beneath the surface, building towards something bigger. By the time different story paths start to overlap, it feels earned. The episode has laid the groundwork carefully, so the payoff feels satisfying instead of sudden. By keeping the story focused, clear, and tightly paced. This episode proves that great storytelling does not need to be complicated to be powerful. It needs intention. Every scene knows its role. Every moment serves the larger story. That level of control is rare, and it's one of the biggest reasons this episode feels so complete. It doesn't just tell a story. It guides the audience through it with confidence, making every second count. The Upside Down has always been a place of fear, but in this episode, it feels more alive and more dangerous than ever before. It is not treated like a background setting or a simple horror space. It feels like a living presence that reacts to the characters and feeds on their fear. The environment itself becomes part of the story. Every step inside this world feels heavy, as if the characters are being watched, judged, and slowly pulled deeper into something they may not escape. This episode understands that true terror does not come from what we see clearly, but from what feels wrong even before anything happens. What makes the Upside Down so powerful here is how personal it feels. The danger is not distant or random. It feels connected to the characters' emotions and memories. The space reflects their fear, their doubt, and their past mistakes. This makes every moment inside it feel intimate instead of distant. When something moves in the shadows, it feels like it is responding to the character's presence, not just existing on its own. The Upside Down is no longer just a scary place. It feels like an enemy that knows exactly who these people are and how to hurt them. The episode also uses atmosphere instead of explanation. There are no long speeches describing what this place is or how it works. The audience learns through feeling. The silence feels thick. The air feels heavy. The stillness feels unnatural. These details create discomfort without saying a single word. The episode trusts visual storytelling to do the work. Strange movements in the background, shapes that don't fully form, and environments that feel familiar but wrong all add to the tension. This approach makes the Upside Down feel mysterious again, restoring the fear that comes from not fully understanding what we are facing. Another reason this version of the Upside Down stands out is how it affects the characters mentally, not just physically. Being there changes how they act. They become quieter, more careful, more aware of every sound and movement. Fear is no longer loud. It becomes controlled and focused. This shift shows how dangerous the place truly is. It doesn't just threaten their bodies, it challenges their confidence and tests their courage. Every decision feels heavier because one mistake could mean losing everything. The episode also does something very smart by limiting what it shows. instead of revealing everything at once. It holds back. Some threats are only hinted at. Some dangers are felt but never fully seen. This restraint allows imagination to take over, which makes the fear stronger. The upside down becomes scarier because it feels endless and unpredictable. You never feel safe. Even in moments of quiet, that constant tension keeps the audience fully engaged, waiting for something to go wrong at any second. What truly makes this upside down feel different is how it mirrors the story's emotional core. The characters are dealing with loss, fear, and uncertainty, and the environment reflects those feelings perfectly. The darkness feels heavier when hope feels fragile. The silence feels louder when words fail. This connection between setting and emotion deepens the experience. The upside down is not just a place they must survive. It represents what they are fighting inside themselves. By the time the episode moves on, the upside down has left a mark. It doesn't feel like a challenge that has been completed and forgotten. It feels like something that will continue to haunt the characters long after they leave it behind. That lasting impact is what makes this episode special. The upside down is not just terrifying here, it is meaningful, and that meaning is what makes it unforgettable. The sound in this episode does more than fill the silence. It tells its own story. Music, noise, and quiet moments are carefully chosen to guide how the audience feels without ever demanding attention. Nothing feels too loud or too obvious. Instead, sound works quietly in the background, shaping tension and emotion in a natural way. This careful control is one of the reasons the episode feels so polished and complete. Music is used with great restraint. It doesn't play constantly, and it doesn't tell the audience how to feel in an obvious way. When music does appear, it feels earned. It rises slowly during emotional moments and fades away before it becomes overwhelming. Sometimes it supports fear, other times it supports hope. What matters is that it always matches the emotional tone of the scene. The music never fights against the story. It walks beside it. This makes emotional moments hit deeper because they feel honest, not forced. Equally important is how silence is used. Silence in this episode is not empty. It is full of tension. Long pauses allow the audience to sit with fear or emotion instead of escaping it. When characters stop talking, the silence feels heavy, almost uncomfortable. This is done on purpose. It gives space for thoughts, doubts, and unspoken feelings to settle in. Silence allows the viewer to connect more deeply with what the characters are experiencing. It makes small sounds feel bigger and small movements feel important. The sound design also plays a huge role in building fear. Simple noises are given. Power footsteps echo longer than expected. Distant sounds feel closer than they should be. Background noise fades in and out in ways that keep the audience alert. These details create unease without relying on sudden loud moments. Instead of jumping at scares, viewers stay tense, always waiting for something to happen. This kind of tension is harder to create, but far more effective. What makes the sound choices even stronger is how they reflect the character's emotions. When a character feels alone, the sound around them feels empty. When fear takes over, the environment seems louder and more chaotic. When hope appears, the noise softens. These changes are subtle, but they matter. They pull the audience into the character's inner world without using words. We don't just see what the characters feel. We hear it. Another smart choice is knowing when to let sound disappear completely. In moments of extreme danger or deep emotion, the episode sometimes removes music and background noise altogether. This creates a sense of isolation. It forces the audience to focus on breathing, movement, and expression. These quiet moments feel intense because there is nothing to distract us. We are fully present in the scene, sharing the tension with the characters. By the end of the episode, it becomes clear that sound was never just decoration. It was part of the storytelling. Music guided emotion, silence built tension, sound effects created fear. All of it worked together to shape the experience without ever pulling attention away from the story. That level of control shows confidence. It shows trust in the audience. And it is one of the strongest reasons why this episode feels so carefully crafted, so emotionally powerful, and so unforgettable.